Hello, 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 and welcome to the next episode of the Shane Walsh podcast. So today's episode is the first Q&A from the January Female Fat Loss Group. So the Female Fat Loss Group started on Monday, and it's amazing to see the questions, the kind of like the wins that everyone's having as well so far, which is fantastic. So if you generally when people are starting off on something, they kind of want to get everything right from the off so they don't feel like they're failing or tripping up or whatever it is. And sometimes it can heighten the perfectionist tendency or the control tendency in some people, which is human nature. But a few of the kind of like the 4 or 5 questions that have kind of come in, I know they've been kind of answered on previous episodes before. And I think it's really, really important to kind of understand that these are my personal opinion. Some are backed in research, some are not, some are my personal opinion. And I think it's really, really important to kind of figure out what bits you will take, and some bits will kind of hit home, so other bits won't. So we're going to talk about the best tracking apps if you are counting calories, which you don't have to. But I know the people in the Amazing Humans in the Female Fat Loss program are counting calories. Then you've got dealing with kind of like the hunger and the cravings that seems to be coming across a little bit right now. And then there's the best protein powder. And this is personal preference. That's mainly the one that's personal preference. And then struggling to hit protein, etc. So there's a few bits and kind of go. So I'll talk about kind of the tracking calories piece. So I think tracking calories, I know I've kind of done a lot of episodes on should we track calories, should we not count calories, etc. And should we count calories is kind of like if it's not taking up every single piece of bandwidth in your head, you're not starting to feel out of control, you're not leaving things out on purpose because of shame and food guilt, and then it's not taken away from your life, well then by all means do it. If it is triggering those things, those perfectionist tools, those feeling out of control, you're skipping things out on purpose by saying, oh, I had a chocolate bar, so I'm going to leave that out. I would say it might not be the best tool for an individual, but it's completely up to you. And then the argument back would be, well, how can I track without that? It was like, MyFitnessPal is a great educational tool, okay? But it can it doesn't create structure and it doesn't create control. It gives perceived control. So the structure generally is up to an individual. So most people that I find that I work with, I come from years of dieting, are kind of in perimenopause, of PCOS, endometriosis, postnatal, so cravings, tiredness, sleep, stress, all these kind of different things kind of are there. And one of the big things that happens to a lot of people is life gets so busy, they become very low on the kind of like the totem pole. And then they get more tired. They skip meals because they think they need to skip meals and eat low calories, like 1,200 calories, in order to get to the way they want. And they find that they get cravings, they get more tired, they get more irritable, they get hangry, and then they end up binging afterwards. So it could be that it might be just a simple tweak to your structure. But with the best apps, there's so many out there. And it's not, some apps are a little bit more kind of handy to use, while others are a little bit more difficult to use and stuff like that. So, like, there's the very popular one with is MyFitnessPal. There's a food database, there's a barcode scanner, there's a fitness tracking section as well. I tend to not to recommend kind of linking your Garmin or your fitness tracker to it because it will burn it will add back in your kind of your burnt calories, which aren't accurate anyway. So you'll end up probably kind of like eating out of your deficit into maintenance and could get frustrated. So when you are entering in your calories into any app, a lot of people will go for 2 pounds of weight loss a week. And that's very fast. Now, some people will be able to do it depending on their starting point. But if you're someone who's like 70 to 80 or 70 to 90 kg, 2 pounds of weight loss would be quite drastic, in my personal opinion. But also, I know some people need to have quick buy-in to see that progress for people. That's why sometimes the weight loss drugs can be helpful for people, because it gets that belief system going that they can do it. So with MyFitnessPal, the database is quite extensive, but the database is very broad. And what I mean by that is the database, say John in Toronto, Mary in Trim, and Margaret up in Mayo, they can all say they're counting the same packet of cookies or the same cookie, they can all put it in as a different number. So the database is kind of created by dieters. So it may not be the most accurate. There's also the bit of that's only as accurate as the person entering in the information. So the accuracy of it may not be the best, but it can be really, really useful. I would just maybe don't use the fitness tracker on it because that can add back in the calories that you may have burnt, which aren't that high, and that's not a challenge. But the watches, people overestimate the calories that they burn, and that's a really, really tricky part to fall into, a place to fall into, because you're kind of worrying about the pennies when the euros are what you need to worry about. Okay, so you've also got an app called Lose It that focuses on weight loss with user-friendly food logging and tracking. I've never really used it, so I can't really give an opinion. You've got Chronometer, which is known for detailed kind of nutrition, including macronutrients like your vitamins and your minerals, which I've seen some people love, some people not so love. Then you've got LifeSum, and that provides AI coaching and meal plans. Now, meal plans are great and they work until they don't, so I'd be wary of that one. You've also got the likes of NutriCheck. I find NutriCheck the most user-friendly one for most people. Plus, the database is created by people in the know, and it's created by people who are experienced in tracking, who are kind of in the know. So it's a solid enough database that you're not kind of looking at 20 different samples of it. Plus, it also has like the bigger restaurants and stuff like that if you're looking for that. So MyFitnessPal, great. NutriCheck, I would say, or Chronometer is probably the best ones that I would kind of say. But it's only as accurate as the person kind of using it. So it's about playing around. But if you find that you're leaving things out on purpose, or if it's not perfect, you skip a day, I would argue the point that maybe it's not the best tool for you. And maybe that might be sparking shame and guilt and kind of the binge restrict cycle for you. But everyone's going to be very different, and it's not about weighing food, etc. Bodybuilders, you're not going to go up on stage, but bodybuilders will be the ones that will be weighing out food. So a really, really useful tip that was a game changer for myself was getting the boil in the bag rices. So for each boil in the bag portion, there are 2 portions in each bag. So if you're cooking, you simply know how to divvy it out then. So that can be really useful for the likes of rice and stuff like that. Sometimes you can use the palm one, using your hand and kind of measuring out your pasta that way. Now, you might have bigger hands, you might have smaller hands, but it depends on the person. Normally hands are in proportion with the actual individual and what they need. So it might be 2 or 3 and playing it around with it, whatever it might be for you. But there's nothing wrong with rice. There's nothing wrong with pasta. They are tasty. They have energy. They're carbohydrates. They are really useful for quick and easy meals. If you're looking to batch cook, meal prep, and whatever it might be, they are class. Carbs are not to be feared. So that's one really useful tip if you are tracking with the measuring it out and stuff like that. If you are having oats, they have the little spoon normally in it, but sometimes you have to go foraging into it, and it can be a bit of a mess when you do. So that'll be one way to do it with that. I normally wouldn't encourage most of my clients to weigh out their foods because it can be kind of become a full-time job. And if your life is stressful enough already, kids are kind of wrecking your head and stuff like that, I would probably say it's probably not, I don't think it's needed. If you want to go hone into it a little bit more, sometimes it can be useful. For a vast majority of people, I don't know if it's needed long term. I don't know if it's needed if it's increasing perfection tendencies for you. I would say it's maybe not the greatest. Then we've got the question regarding with dealing with the hunger and cravings. I think a lot of people right now, post Christmas, the cold weather, etc., are struggling with the kind of like the hunger. Now, if you are dieting and you're trying to lose weight and you're going very fast, hunger will be up. Now, I know I've said previously that you shouldn't be hungry when you're trying to lose weight. It depends how aggressive you are going. Depends on how nourished you are feeling. Also depends on stress, sleep, your kind of hormonal fluctuations, etc. So a couple of reasons why you might be more hungry. So you don't really need, you shouldn't be suffering doing this. You shouldn't be miserable doing this. Okay, when you're trying to lose weight. If you're doing it and you're miserable and you're missing out on things, well, I would be probably feedback enough that it might be the wrong approach. So hunger might be increased because when we tend to have a little bit more food, like at Christmas, there's two hunger hormones. There's leptin and there's ghrelin. So ghrelin, think of hunger. So ghrelin is your hunger hormone. So that tells you when you're hungry. And then there's leptin, which is you're less hungry. And that regulates you when you're full. But when we have a little bit more food in our body and we're having a little bit more food, our hunger hormone will ramp up. So if we're having a fair bit of food over Christmas, like we all did, that can be one factor why the hunger is ramping up. Now, there also could be a factor that maybe you're dehydrated because it's so cold. You might not be looking to drink water. It won't be the first thing, but tea and coffee count. Now, we all know having too much coffee can interrupt your sleep. It can impact your anxiety, etc. So go for like warm water. Go for your kind of add in a little bit of kind of like your MyWadi or whatever it might be to kind of add into it. But your water, your guidance of water for 1.5 to 2 liters of water a day, depending on what weight you are, etc. It includes your food, it includes your water, it includes your tea, it includes your coffee. So going for some of the herbal things, adding a little bit of honey into your water, whatever it might be, could help, etc. And then with the cravings, it could be a sign that you're trying to be like a saint and you're trying to cut out all of the foods that you enjoy. So think of cravings like a red engine light on your car. It's giving you feedback that that something's not right. What I mean by that is it could be something like your stage of your cycle where you might need that little bit more energy. It could be giving you feedback that you haven't slept. It could be that you're stressed. It could be that you're wired. It could be that you haven't drank enough water. You haven't nourished yourself. So if you're someone who's skipping meals during the day and you wonder why your head's in the cupboard or the pantry when you come home from work, it will be feedback that you probably are undernourished. Undernourishment is more often than not the bit that trips people up because they're made to believe that they have to be miserable, they have to eat really, really low calories, which isn't the case. So dealing with the hunger, a good way to test out if you're hungry is if you are hungry enough for fruit, it's a solid way, but real hunger comes on quite slowly. Emotional hunger comes on quite quickly. So sometimes what can be useful is just asking yourself, right, have I eaten enough today? And the first question most often not is probably not. Have I drunk enough water today? Probably not. And that could be give you enough feedback there. But I know when you're in that realm or you're in that zone, you might feel to yourself, there's no talking to me. I've already decided what I'm going to do. So your intent is set that I am addicted to sugar. I am going to eat this. I am going to eat this bar. I am weak. I have no discipline, whatever it might be. That's not the case. That's a story that you've told yourself because it's what has gone before. So it becomes like a bit of an identity thing. Now that might be too deep and too thought-provoking for this time in the morning. You may not have had your coffee yet. But if you're hungry all the time, and now there are people who have higher hunger hormones, people who would be on Ozempic, who struggle with obesity, they have higher hunger hormones. So that can feel like there's no amount of food that's going to fill them. So they don't have a level playing field to someone who doesn't suffer with that. And that's not a sign of weakness or discipline or failure, but it can be feedback that it could be a possibility to get to look at. And I'm not condoning and I'm not promoting, should I say, but those weight loss drugs have changed many people's lives. I have got a fair few clients on the weight loss drugs at the minute, and they're trying to learn how to eat long term because the research at the moment is when people come off it, a lot of the weight comes back on, and it's trying to figure out how to navigate, etc. But some people may need a low level dose or a dose going forward for the rest of their life. That's the way it is at the minute. It's not a sign of failure. So dealing with the hunger could be feedback that it's the colder weather. When we're cold, we tend to want comfort. And when we want comfort, guess what comes in? The old reliable, the one that's never left us, never failed us, is food. So it could be water. It could be that it's cold. It could be that you're not nourished enough during the day. It could be a sign that you're sleep deprived. Maybe you've got night sweats or hot flushes or whatever it might be as well. So that could be one other thing. The next question was best protein powder. This is completely person dependent. I don't really have that need for sweet, if that makes any sense. Like I've used the Kinetica one, I've used my protein, I've used a load of the different ones. My personal favorite is the mint chocolate one from Optimum Nutrition. And I know recently I started using, we made an order last week because the flavor that we like sold out. So we used a company called Inside Nutrition, which are Irish, and they've loads of different flavors. So what's really useful to do is get a little sachet of it and test out the flavor that way to see if you like it. Because I found that some of them, like the dark chocolate one or the chocolate ones, are too rich for me and they're too sweet for me. So I don't really enjoy those ones. But the mint chocolate is the right balance of the two. And mint chocolate is one of my favorite flavors of ice cream. So I've tried a couple of different ones, but Optimum Nutrition is the closest one I like to the flavor of ice cream. I know I've had banana, I've had strawberry, whatever it might be, salted caramel. So it's about trying out which one. But I use Optimum Nutrition, I've used Kinetica, I've used my protein, I've used Inside Nutrition if you want to support Irish, Kinetica, and that side of things. They can be useful to kind of top up your breakfast, to top up a snack or get a smoothie in. I know during the summer, I swear by smoothies for the mornings, and that can be really useful to get your daily vegetables and daily fiber in one meal. So you're not worrying about it for the rest of the day, but it's also really, really filling. Because I know some people find that if they just have some oats on their own, that they're ravenous afterwards. But if you have, for some people, it can help that you're adding a little bit more fruit, you're adding a little bit more protein powder into those. But I think there's this over reliance on high protein recipes, etc. They're all over social media, but we're still confused about what is a protein source or how to implement it or struggling to hit the protein. If you look and write out on a piece of paper, because we're a lot of us are visual people. If you write out on a sheet of paper your meals for the day, you'll be able to spot pretty quickly. Like, all right, I'm just having cereal for my breakfast. All right, well, or I'm just having toast for breakfast. Why not make an egg on top of it? Turkey rasher. Or if you're having a bowl of cereal, maybe try oats with some protein powder. Or you want to try some oats with some Greek yogurt, or you want to try and have some beans on toast. Something, those little small little things. And some people don't like breakfast, which is great, which is cool. But I know because I train kind of mid-morning, I need to have breakfast beforehand. I've noticed a big difference in my energy. I've noticed a big difference in my strength and my consistency with it. And it can really, really help. So if you're struggling to hit the protein, write out 1 or 2 days at a time and see where you can spot the protein sort, your meals, and see what's light. So you might be having a curry and you're like, all right, I'm just going to add in maybe some chicken or some fish or some prawns or some chickpeas or whatever it might be. If you're looking at your lunch and that could be the one that's tripping you up, you're like, all right, let's have a sandwich. Now, people will already have in their head, well, I can't have bread. Bread isn't the devil. The devil is the restriction. There's two big things. So look at your lunch, make a wrap. I know today for lunch is literally going to be a couple of wraps with a bit of chicken, a bit of rocket, a bit of barbecue sauce, a bit of onion, a bit of peppers. Keeping it really, really simple. I'm not really hungry at the minute. So it's kind of one of those that it's kind of light enough. My brain, we eat when we sit with our eyes. So it's not overwhelming my brain in order to do that because I'm a little bit stressed. So I know that when I get stressed, my hunger turns off. So I sometimes have to encourage myself, shall we say. And then dinner tonight, I know a really simple thing that we're having tonight is I'm going to be making homemade pad thai with a bit of chicken and a bit of prawn. And that's tonight's dinner and tomorrow's dinner. So I know for the two of us. So I know that's going to bring down the food budget. Neve is a food scientist, so she loves the kind of like the organization piece, ties in with keeping the food budget down, etc. And our food budget is cut down by 30-40% in the last while from tweaking by 4 or 5 things, which was writing out a menu for a few days, cooking the same things for a couple of days, or else even freezing those, having stuff in the freezer, maybe every second Sunday or every third Sunday going to Musgraves to get the big boxes and doing a batch cook when you kind of come back. Big boxes of the chicken because it's a hell of a lot cheaper for that kind of the non-luxury pieces. And that can be really helpful. So I think the best app play around with it, see what works for you, but kind of just kind of keep an eye on if it's kind of triggering control issues or kind of perfection pieces. I would be cautious of using it. Dealing with hunger and cravings. It could be the cold. It could be also one bit I didn't kind of really mention was the longer evenings. So because it's darker, a lot of people aren't feeling safe and completely understandable kind of going out for walks. And not everyone has access to that because some people are living down the country. So I know a lot of the local GAA pitches have kind of pitch size tracks and stuff like that that people can kind of walk around. But if you're kind of finishing your dinner at like 6 or 7 o'clock, and you're not going to bed until 11 o'clock, there's a fair old stint there, 4 hours, 3 hours, whatever it might be, to kind of put in without any food. So that could be when the boredom creeps in. That could be when the emotional eating might creep in. Not from a lack of discipline or lack of willpower. It's just that the evenings are longer, so it's longer to put in. And sometimes about kind of like maybe a useful thing is, right, maybe it's about having a snack. Maybe sometimes it can help to have a glass of water. Sometimes it can help to just brush your teeth, or sometimes it can actually kind of journal or talk or that side of things. But like nothing's going to hit that kind of dopamine hit that you have in your brain. But a few little caveats and a few little caveats is the wrong word. Tools that you can use in the background. So hopefully that'll help with the best app, dealing with the hunger, with the colder weather. Breast protein powder, struggle to hit protein. So if you have any questions at all on this at all, just shout. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. So if you prefer to watch the podcast, head over to Shane Walsh Fitness on YouTube and you can watch the podcast there. Thank you so much to everyone who has listened, watched, joined any second of the podcast so far. But thank you so much for listening. If you have any queries, just shout.